Good morning, everyone. Welcome to day 2 of the WISE Summit. The WISE Organising Committee has very helpfully given us an outline of what they mean by sustainability in this context. So firstly, sustainability means ensuring adequate funding, workable governance, suitable accreditation, and mechanisms to protect equality. All of these essential to ensure the long-term survivability, if you like, of school, college, and university systems. It is about making sure that education reforms that we implement now will last well into the future with sufficient flexibility to adapt to changing circumstances. But secondly, sustainability is also about ensuring that education contributes towards a globally sustainable culture in the context of, for example, world population growth and potentially contradictory and sometimes conflicting ideologies and beliefs.
The Universal Declaration of Human Rights affirms that everyone has a right to education. But too often, alas, education is neither the first choice nor as priority for countries or governments. Worldwide, some 72 million children of primary school age are still denied the right to education. Here in Western Asia, 3 million children of primary school age do not attend the school. 64% of them are girls. In this region and worldwide, the Millennium Development Goals target of eliminating gender disparities in primary and secondary school by 2005 was already missed. It is clear that eliminating gender disparity in all levels of education no later than 2015 is indeed a daunting task. Poverty, conflict, disease, discrimination, exploitation, and sometimes bad governance all conspire to keep children out of school. In some cases, the quality of education that young people receive cause more harm than good. This is especially the case when teaching and learning move away from letters and numbers to closed ideologies or lessons of exclusion. Human progress depends on the development and integration of all three of these aspects: the intellectual, the moral, and the spiritual. It is said that for the same cost of stationing a single additional soldier in Afghanistan for a year, roughly 20 schools can be built. It is only when a world preoccupied with immediate deadlines and time frames looks to a vision of the future that the benefits of education become tangible and indeed sustainable. Innovation is not just about the technologies, but it is also about new ideas. The time has come for a new culture of ISR, intellectual social responsibility, one that takes teaching, learning, and research beyond the campus, laboratory, or classroom, one that responds to the aspirations and idealistic zeal of the young people to make a difference in the real world, one that harnesses its energy and promise to the search for real solution to the real problem confronted by the real people, and one that recognizes that to be sustainable, education must itself have the capacity to sustain. That is the challenge.
Education is perhaps the single most powerful force for unlocking potential, changing lives, and lifting people from the depth of poverty and despair to a world of possibility and opportunities. As an extension of the nuclear family, the educational institution is a unit of socialization where ideas are shaped and values nurtured. Therefore, it is a natural context for teaching the next generation what needs to be done to preserve the quality of life for the future, to promote global citizenship and a sense of shared responsibility. What jobs are needed now and for the future? What skills are lacking? What kinds of investment are needed, human or otherwise, to prepare students for what they will encounter outside the wall of the school and the university? The implications of these questions are obvious. Education reform must be conceived of and fashioned within the framework of a comprehensive development plan. This entails harnessing resources and existing technologies to serve a wider base beyond the immediate community. Capitalize on comparative advantages and cooperating with each other. It also involves stepping away from long-held beliefs about the superiority of some system or values over others. We all have something to teach and many things to learn. This brings me to my third point, which is that we cannot discuss making education sustainable without talking about the values that promote sustainability. We need to be vigilant to ensure that there is not a two-tier system of education, one of those who can afford to pay and another of a lesser quality for those who cannot. Finally, let me conclude by saying that whatever the changes needed to foster sustainability of the educational systems, they must be owned by the society. We need to know what people think, what they hope for, and what is their perspective are on change. Only then can we hope to secure our gains and protect our future. In a globalized world, our problems are interconnected, and so must be the solution.
One major goal of education reform is to help individuals, communities, countries, and the world to have better economy and better life. These are the critical targets for learning. It's the employability, citizenship, and lifelong learning skills. A monitoring and evaluation framework that generates knowledge, promotes learning, and guides action is in its own right an important means of capacity development and sustainability of national results.
I'm convinced that we can only continue to guarantee prosperity and social stability in the era of globalization if we focus consistently on education, research, and innovation. What we need in all industrial societies is greater sustainable investment in the future, more investment in childcare, in schools and universities, in research and development. Then we have to make full use of the potential that our societies have to offer in terms of talent, aptitude and skills. No talent must be allowed to remain undiscovered. We must exhaust all our reserves. Each and every individual must be given the opportunity to receive a first-class education. Where parents' resources are not sufficient, state and society must help out by means of support programs and grants. I know from my own personal experience that educational opportunities really are life opportunities. Alongside the social issue, we need to look at safeguarding the natural resources on which life depends. The sustainable use of our vital natural resources and the contribution that education and research can make towards meeting this challenge are subjects that moved and inspired the Qatar Foundation. Without economic strength, it is not possible to have a decent social policy, and without a healthy environment, economic success cannot be sustained over long term. If we fail to live up to this responsibility, we will destroy the national foundations of life for our children. Ladies and gentlemen, we can meet these challenges if societies as well as governments embrace these tasks, if responsible citizens take on responsibility for themselves and for common good. But this kind of attitude has to be learned. And where do people learn it? Mainly in places with education takes place in families, at schools and universities. This is where the decision will be made about what kind of society we will live in the future. Thank you very much for your attention.
Gentlemen, just there, please. Yep.
What do you think of the impediments that would prevent the equal treatment in education to females, the gender problem?
Women education in poor countries is a problem because it had to do now, at this time of history, it had to do with poverty and access to school. And I think the United Nations and everybody has been talking for I don't know how many decades about access to education or education for all. I think the issue now we are facing is equality education for all, because access by itself will not solve the problem.
One important issue about literacy and education as a whole is the perceived return on education. And this is one problem that most of young people and also the illiterate people in Egypt are facing now, that you don't see a real return on education, especially with the growing unemployment rates.
We hear great ideas, we hear very good responses. But my question to all of you is, where are we going wrong? What do we do when there is crisis? What do we do when there is conflict? The response would be military force. So I think there is need for a shift in our mentality, because we want to really have a teaching force and not a military force.
Mr. Akasaka quoted the recent New York Times article on Afghanistan, where the cost of one soldier was equated with the cost of 40 schools. So I would welcome the panel's reflections on this, how we raise the profile of education in countries in crisis, and what do you see the role of Qatar and the Arab world in this? Thank you.
The priorities compete each other. People say health is #1 priority, agriculture, infrastructure, now the security and peace in Afghanistan is the priority. You've got to fight among those priorities. But in order to get the priority for education, I believe that people have got to understand that education is the key to development. It has got to be an integral part of the environmental, economic, social, and sustainable development policies of the country.
Thank you. And Professor Al-Musnad?
There is an initiative here in Qatar started by Her Highness Sheikh Moza, and her concern is how to protect school during war. And they have done so much activities with Iraq, and I'm sure Afghanistan is a good candidate for this project. So if you need more information, you contact Qatar Foundation. But the project has been working on for the last 3 years now.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.